absolutely. There was some decisions there that definitely could have went their way, especially in the second half. That penalty was a clear penalty, and as a coach, I'd be highly disappointed with those decisions. But at the end of the day, that's football, right?
Yeah, it is, and it's the unfortunate side of the game where you can do what you need to on the park, but the officials have the ability to change the game. Australia, very, very lucky though, Jo.
Yeah, and look, this is where we have to look beyond the result, and we have to say that England still causes a lot of problems, and defensively we're struggling against the front three. That's what France played. England were able to get numbers forward with their front three, and it's worrying going into a World Cup 6 months out of it, and we've still got so many problems in terms of just how we play, what players need to be spending more time getting chemistry together. This is, a big wake-up call for us. Result aside, I mean, fair call. Congratulations to Polkinghorne for grabbing a goal. That's an experienced customer now. And to be served in from KK in her 100th game, the veterans pulling something out of the hat for us. That was fantastic, and that we got that result. But we have to look past that. Our performance.
So what caught your eye about the performance after these two games? What are the glaring issues?
Well, we need to stop experimenting. We need to build chemistry between the players that are going to play there. Are we going to play Steph Catley at left back or centre back? Are we going to play Caitlin Ford at right back? We'll get them in their positions and start having chemistry where the players need chemistry. And again, we need to be able to deal better with the front three. We still didn't work out. Was Caitlin Ford staying or was she going? Our fullback still wanted to get forward. You can't do that with the three up top. So that's where the problems still weren't solved in this game. We were able to get a bit more joy, but there's still a lot of questions to be asked.
What questions are you asking out of this, Mills?
Look, I think definitely the understanding their roles and responsibilities, and like we said, when you're playing various positions, it's very hard to understand what your role, what your responsibility is. Credit to the girls, though, to be able to play, various positions. This is a lot of pressure at an international stage, and, we've got to give credit to every single girl that's taken the field for us over the last 4 years that has been experimented with, if that's what you're saying.
That's right.
But it's great to them, but in saying that, I understand in terms of need to start getting girls to cement their spot and actually taking ownership for that spot. And that obviously has to be done in the lead up now to the World Cup. We need to start understanding, well, these are the players, this is where they're going to be playing, and we need to obviously take a lot more ownership with that.
Okay, so let's try and play devil's advocate here and understand why Coach Alan Svajcic is trying to do this or persisting with this theory that these positions need to be experimented with. He's still particularly the left and right back roles. We know that Steph Catley is normally deployed in that left back role, and credit to her also. She's been virtually playing on one leg because she's having surgery next week and has been battling that injury, and an absolute star for the Matildas, also a great servant to the green and gold. But that right back position seems to be so problematic. I guess my issue with this is that he's been experimenting with some of these roles, these various roles, since the last World Cup in Canada. Why? Can we try to understand his methodology, Jo?
Well, the reasoning that I can see is that he wants his best players out in the park, and he doesn't quite, he doesn't care where they go. So he wants his best players out there. And if that means that he needs to put Steph Catley in at centre back rather than left back to get his chosen team out there or players, then that's what he's persisting with. Now the question becomes the tension is between, do you have versatility, do you have your best players out there, or do you actually need to have chemistry within a team?
So what's more important? You're both coaches. What's more important, Jo?
I'll be looking at chemistry 6 months out for the World Cup. You don't want to be experimenting anymore. France and England, they're not, I mean, they threw, France, debuted a 20-year-old. They got, he played his number 2 keeper tonight. So there's still opportunity for that, but we are doing way too many changes now at this point in the 4-year cycle. We should be playing players and looking for chemistry between players. Are we even going to play still 4 at the back? Well, We don't. We have to because we haven't tried anything else. I'd like to see us, what if we went to a 3 at the back and only had one wide player rather than expecting a fullback and a winger to work together? Someone like Carpenter would be great as a wing back. Further up the park, have your 3 at the back, have two sixes, and then you can start actually sending your wingers on, wing backs on. Like other teams are now evolving. We have to evolve our style.
Okay, so this then leads to the next question where we talk about evolving. Does our league here in Australia need to evolve? Because we don't exactly have the perfect environment to allow for these players the adequate rest time, particularly in a World Cup cycle where they're not having to run back and forth between either Europe or the US and then come back and play in a very short league here in the W League. Is that a big problem here too?
It is definitely. The W League obviously needs to definitely go a full round. We need to have home and away games because it's very important for our younger generation that are coming through that they're in those environments. But another big problem for us as well is that we need to start being competitive and we need to start qualifying for Youth World Cups, which then we won't have the issue of having to try and debut 15-year-old girls in a senior environment. So the more internationals that they play, and, the French girl, she's 20 debuting for France, but she has played in Youth World Cups. She's had, she's probably played 30, 40 games, internationals at a youth level, good opposition, good opponents, playing at top level football where our young Matildas are unfortunately not getting that.
So if we don't have those pathways, that seems to be the biggest problem here. I know that you've been really vocal, Joe, in terms of your views on, should you really be using a 15-year-old in this national team setup, which you expect to be quite established at that point and not such an experimental side. But if you don't have those pathways, what's the alternative then?
Well, that's what we're seeing, is that we're seeing Mary Fowler and Naomi Sayer, which I thought did fantastic tonight. And that is not the question. If we move beyond if you're good enough, you're old enough, if we move beyond that to a bigger picture, yes, we start alluding to now what's underneath the Matildas that's developing our players.
But can we move beyond that, though, if you're old enough, you're good enough? Because from judging by those two performances from those players you've named there, I thought they were very good. And they held their own within this national team setup. Can you move beyond it, Joe?
We need to if we want to be world champions. That's the difference between us and the French and the English. They're not bringing on 15-year-olds. We've just said they're bringing on 20-year-olds. So until we get to that point, we're going to be struggling to beat the best in the world. Until we get a W League that's a full competition, we're not going to be competing unless these players start actually going over to Europe now. Europe is the future. That's where tactically we need to be better, and that's where they are better.
And so we saw Fowler come on against France in the latter stages of the second half. Okay, she got better minutes the second time around, but she certainly looks very exciting. And I thought perhaps a bit of a Sam Kerr 2.0 maybe.
Yeah, she's exciting. Like I said, last game, she's got no fear, and I thought she'd done fantastic today. As a 15-year-old, she looked very comfortable out there today, which was, fantastic to see. She's got her game face on all the time when there's no smile there. She's serious about everything that she does. But I thought she'd done very, very well today also.
The worry for me, Luce, is that while we're using these 15-year-olds, fantastic. What about the ones we've got? Someone like Michelle Heyman, where is she? There's players that have been around the camp that now they're blooding these players. Do we really need to now? Do we need to have we given the other players enough of a chance, playing out of positions and all this experimenting? I think we've got enough with what we've already had, and he needs to start cementing now these girls in their position and get the chemistry.
Okay, so I want to ask you both a question then. There has been so much talk and so much hype and buzz around this Matildas team, and rightfully so, because we've had some really impressive performances and results, particularly off the back of the 2015 World Cup, where I feel that sparked a genuine fascination and thirst for women's football, but an acknowledgement that this is a team that could be one of the very best in the world. We're ranked 6th. We're going to the World Cup next year. A lot of people saying that we could potentially win it. But I want some realism here. What are our chances, realistically?
Yeah, look, I think we're definitely going to be a very good competitor at the World Cup. There's no doubt about that. You know, in terms of, you know, as Australians, we always, you know, strive to be number one. As soon as we see a little bit of success, and that's what the Matildas have had over the last 4 years, it's been success that we've never seen in women's football. So as soon as we see a little bit of success, we're like, oh, we're going to win the World Cup, which is fantastic, you know, for our sport. But in saying that, to win a World Cup, there's a lot more background. I mean, it's like building a house. You need to have a solid foundation first before you can, you know, to hold that house up. So it's the same thing. There's a lot of work that needs to be done before we can win that World Cup. Are we on the way there? Definitely yes, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
Joe, your 2 cents on this? I mean, we've had a look at France already and the threats that they pose. I'll tell you now, they were frightening. They gave me nightmares after that match because of how good they were. Wave after wave of attack. They are certainly very impressive. And we all know that being the host nation already gives you that advantage. But to play that style of football, wow, they're on another level.
Yeah, and they're true contenders. So it's interesting hearing the rest of the world talk about us still as the dark horse, or the French coast didn't give us much respect at all. And fair enough, because they're taking the game to that next level. So even though we're sitting 6th in the rankings, to be able to, we've seen what number 3 and 4 in the world now, what that takes. And it's a different level. Like I said, Europe's probably the future of women's football because tactically of what they're doing. They're playing with front threes. They're playing with back threes. They've got so much versatility tactically that we're being shown up at the moment.
Les Sommers, absolute force in football in France, and she was a force on the day as well. But it wasn't just her. It was a host of players within this French side. Of course, Renard, another one. The defender who's a Ballon d'Or nominee. I mean, they've got quality all over the park, Mills, and they really showed us up that night.
Look, but I absolutely loved watching France the other night. I think they're a beautiful footballing nation. The football that they play with the ball and just their structure even off the ball, it's just so beautiful to watch, you know, and to see that a women's football team is actually playing this style of football. It's just, I'm just amazed by it, honestly.
And England, they did play a different style. Let's go back to our game now. I mean, I referenced those moments of frustration that they would be feeling, particularly their coach, Phil Neville. 2 disallowed goals and also 2 potential penalty shouts. That ball, from a different angle you can see, it clearly goes over the line. Joe?
It looks like it.
Oh.
And again, when's the women's game going to get online technology?
It should. It damn well should, that's for sure. Out of this, you'd have to argue, and you'd be almost wondering why in an international it's not being used.
You wait till Phil Neville. I can't wait till the press conference because he's going to be seething, and rightly so. This deserves better officiating.
That's not offside. No? Joe?
It's not offside, no.
So we saw these 2 moments occur, and then, of course, there was a penalty shout in the first half. This is that moment here where we thought, oh, has she genuinely been brought down? Hasn't she? You'd have to say, Mills, that's a clear pen.
Yeah, look, like I said, it could go either way there.
This one probably more so.
Even more so, you think?
This one here is definitely a clear penalty.
So brought down Nikita Paris there. Ford's gone straight through her.
And the reaction from her, she knows the whole English bench knew that was a penalty, except the referee. Unfortunately.
Yeah, everybody on the day thought it was a penalty, except the referee.
You could see on Neville's face, you know, the disappointment in obviously not getting a win out of that game. And for us, you know, to get that draw out of that game was fantastic, that we could keep digging deep and, you know, put everything aside. But in terms of, you know, for England, you've got to say that they're a little bit hard done by certain decisions today, and I could just understand the disappointment in the girls' faces when they walked off the field. You could see it in their faces.
And potentially the relief on the Australian players' faces as well to come out of that with only a draw. Let's look ahead, of course. We do still have some games coming up, some international friendlies scheduled against Chile here on Australian soil, which will be fantastic. Again, we saw the amazing turnout for the games when Brazil came to play here in those matches, and in Newcastle in particular. You were there, weren't you, Joe? The atmosphere was just brilliant. But going forward, what does Stage do for these 2 games now? Can you answer it?
I mean, I'd love to see changes, but I don't know if they're going to come. We've been playing this way for a few years and it's been working great, and I'm sure it will work really well against Chile. But that's not who we need to beat, is it? We need to beat France and we need to beat England to get to World Cup semi-finals. So I'm sure we'll go back home with Chile. The girls will continue to do us proud. But there's bigger questions to ask now if we have the aspirations to get to a World Cup final or semi-final. there's a lot of work to be done.
Okay, so what are the expectations then, Nils? Are we saying that if we don't finish at least in the semis of this World Cup, that serious questions have to be asked of Stadge?
Yeah, look, definitely. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure on him as a coach in terms of, wanting to be in that semi-finals. I think now with what we've done and what we've actually, strived towards as
But
as
is
a
that
nation.
a reasonable expectation, do you think?
Yeah,
Kath, are you looking at it saying we should finish in the semis?
Yeah, I definitely think that we should be aiming for semis, 100%. If we do better than that, it's a bonus, and it's definitely an option. It can happen. Anything can happen in football, but definitely we should be looking at making a semi-final and creating history with this team and this generation.
Well, one thing is